So welcome. We're going to start with a very brief video and then we'll get started with our program. Thank you so much.
Community.
Foundational.
Potential.
Resilient.
Inspired.
A conduit.
The values of the Darryl Chappell Foundation are simple: integrity, financial self-sufficiency, community, collaborating with partners, with artists, and continuous improvement. My name is Darryl Chappell. I'm the founder, president, and chairman of the Darryl Chappell Foundation. I retired from a financial services company, sold my Washington, D.C. home of 10 years, used the proceeds to actually start the nonprofit Darryl Chappell Foundation 501c3. So the Darryl Chappell Foundation is focused on enabling emerging artists to achieve their highest potential. We do that through focusing on artists in residencies, artist talk series, and we curate an online digital platform for artists. The foundation has a presence at the local level in Chicago, in Syracuse, New York, in Washington, D.C., in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Meanwhile, the impact is global. The Darryl Chappell Foundation Emerging Artist Learning Pathway consists of 4 phases. The 4th phase is to provide an established artist with an opportunity to give back as a mentor. So they serve as a mentor to the artists in residencies. My vision for the future is that the actual visual artists that the foundation supports today will have a chance to actually be in a position to support other artists who are emerging.
My name is Mildor Chevalier. I am a Caribbean artist. I'm from Haiti, and I live and work in New York City. I'm one of the artists who have worked on the Artist Marketplace. I've participated in the Artist Talk series. It was great to have an audience, can have a platform to talk about not only what we feel as an artist, but also our journey and our viewpoint.
Hola, ¿cómo están? Mi nombre es Joyce Alarcón, soy fotógrafa y narradora visual de Ecuador. Es para mí una gran alegría poder compartir con ustedes parte de mi trabajo que está expuesto en el Marketplace de la Fundación Darryl Chappell. Una invitación para que pasen y vean todos los proyectos que compartimos con ustedes a través de esta plataforma online.
Hi, my name is Cecil McDonald, a photographer, videographer, performance artist. My relationship to the foundation is through a COVID emergency grant. I just never thought that during COVID people would think about artists. And it made you say, oh, now I have to really keep working because there are people who care about the things you're doing.
My name is April Frazier and I'm an artist. The foundation has been an integral part of these last 2 years in my career in the sense that it's given opportunity for more exposure and exploration of different facets of art. One was being the facilitator of the Artist Talk between Early Hutnall and John Simmons.
It was so fascinating. My name is Monique Brinkman-Hill and I'm the Executive Director of the Southside Community Arts Center. We've been around for 81 years with a mission of conserving, preserving Black art, teaching the community. We were thinking, how can we collaborate? What we came up with is that we would collaborate on his Artist Talk series, and that was a virtual collaboration moderated by April Frazier. It was established Black cinematographers and photographers sharing their stories, talking about their practice and how they work. It just was in so much in alignment with the center and what we do and how we want to celebrate the artists. So it was a great collaboration for us.
Well, it's a great foundation. No, I mean, Darryl Chappell is a wonderful individual, so committed and responsible and thoughtful foundation. I think it immediately brings to mind the financial support, which of course is vital.
I chose to volunteer because I believe in Daryl and I believe in the mission of the foundation. We don't have all the money in the world, but we have some good skills, right? And we can do a bunch of different stuff, and we know like some interesting people. So let's just all combine all of these different things and see where it takes us.
Art is very important in life, even in difficult times. It reflects the society and people's daily life in a different level. So I love arts, even I'm not an artist, but I want to contribute to the art world, especially for underappreciated artists.
Thank you to the foundation for such a great vision, creating a community for Afro-descendant artists and helping artists to achieve their potential and creating some kind of pathway for the ones coming. And I think this is great, and I'm always looking forward for any new endeavors that the foundation is taking and to be a part of it.
Please consider supporting the Darryl Chappell Foundation. This is a prime opportunity to utilize our foundation as a great vehicle to show your passion for art and compassion for underappreciated artists, raise their awareness, truly make a difference for the artists in need.
You're helping a very good foundation from the ground up, and you're gonna help build with us as we go on this journey together.
For more information, please visit our website, darylchappellfoundation.org.
I just want to say thank you. The fact that an organization like this came through to support, it's no small task, so I'm very appreciative of that, and I just want to say thank you.
We can't hear you. Thank you so much. How long have we been in the Zoom world? Almost 3 years, and it still happens. Welcome, everyone. So glad to have you here today. I'm Darryl Chappell. I am so delighted for you to be here. We have an exciting program planned for you. Your lines are on mute at present, but please continue to engage with us via the chat. There will be ample time for you to ask questions during this session today. I just briefly wanted to revisit the vision of the Darryl Chappell Foundation. The vision is to build a community of artists who impact the world in exciting ways. And so we're very thankful to have you here today to be a part of that vision and to be a part of that mission in supporting you as artists in achieving your highest potential. The Darryl Chappell Foundation has 4 programs. We provide grants to other nonprofits. We provide artist in residence grants. We provide an artist talk series twice a year. The new program is Fund for Community Art, which I'll mention a little bit more about that near the end of today. And then we also actually curate an online marketplace for artists. It's called the Artist Marketplace, where 5 artists actually have 40 works of art on sale through the Darryl Chappell Foundation Artist Marketplace. So the reason we're all here today, though, is to learn about how to price your actual artwork with confidence and with that ability. So I'm very pleased to introduce 2 remarkable people with regard to art appraisals, art history, art curation, literally wrote the book on art. And so with that in mind, I'm going to start off though with the first presenter. Each presenter will spend about 15 minutes, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So this is your time. This is for you. And just a reminder, this is being recorded, so you're aware when you ask your questions that those will be recorded as well. So with that in mind, I'm going to start right off by introducing our first speaker, and that's Halima Taha. We're going to put her bio in the actual chat, so you can definitely take a look at all the work she's done. For a very high-level overview, very, very high level, Halima is an art professional, a curatorial experience, art advisory, galleries and appraisals in strategic planning, and has continued to do a lot of work across the United States and throughout Europe as well. She's well known for her best-selling book, Collecting African American Art, Works on Paper and Canvas, and she still continues to be a strong advocate for the arts and artists. So I'm going to hand it over now to Halima.
Well, good afternoon. I want to thank all of you for registering to participate in this presentation and conversation and exchange about how to price your art. And Daryl, I want to thank you and the Darryl Chappell Foundation for inviting me to contribute to your vision, as well as express my delight in being here with Diane. My intention is to provide a succinct context and strategy for pricing your work, with the goal of instilling more confidence in your approach about pricing your artwork. I realize that many of the participants this afternoon are in different stages of their career. So I'm trying to keep that in mind in this succinct view. But before we can really talk about how to price your work, we have to look at the context in which we are pricing the work for, and that would be to really look at the marketplace and to identify which market your work would be more successful in, because there are many parallel markets that are under this huge umbrella called the art market. So the art world, the art market worldwide is a marketplace for buyers and sellers. And within the business world of statisticians, it's called the arts and cultural sector. And it consists of a primary market, which is artwork that's sold for the first time, and the secondary market, which is the resale of artwork from the primary market. 6 months ago, the global art market was valued at $65.1 billion. And $36.7 million accounts for the volume of art transactions worldwide. And the United States has the higher share of the global art market. Online sales account for $3.3 billion, and since last year grew 7.3%. The sales value of art and collectible NFTs worldwide is $11.16 billion. So there are many markets under this art umbrella. And again, I emphasize it's important for you as an artist to really make the time to do your due diligence and look at the different markets so that you can identify which is the best market for you. The traditional and historic model is the international market. And this has also been the most elitist model in the international market, but it's comprised of a series of symbiotic relationships between the artist, the art dealer, the collector, the curator, the critic, the appraiser, and publishers. And of course, this market has changed dramatically due to the growth of international art fairs because of transnationalism and globalism. And the art ecosystem has shifted the way that this traditional art infrastructure has functioned. But we can talk about that a little bit later. The other market is the popular and the commercial art market. And this is really the market for indoor and outdoor art fairs and art expos, with the artist primarily running the booth or selling the artwork directly. And of course, the internet is a market which has also increased dramatically since the pandemic for artists to sell their work. Artists are using their own websites. They're using Etsy, Amazon, Society6, UGA Gallery, Fine Art America, Shopify, Turning Point, and Zazzle. Another market for many artists is the commission market, and artists are targeting corporations and real estate developers and parks departments to commission them to do major art projects that fulfill their goals. ArtStation and Twitch are resources that also could help you discover and explore some of those opportunities. I think the most important thing that I want to convey is that you need to honestly assess which market your work will receive the most visibility and financial success for you. You will not be able to assess this if you have not clearly defined what your immediate, short, and long-term goals are for yourself as an artist. But after you do that and you do your comparable research, ask yourself, how does my work fit in this market? And why doesn't it fit in the market? And the answer, honestly, may not be acceptable to your ego, but you have to focus on your goal of making strong visual statements that leave your studio onto private and institutional walls and collections. You may find that your work may appeal to a specific target market, like interior designers for their clients or for corporations. But it's important to understand who your collector is. All collectors are not the same. When they say collector, you have to understand their perspective about putting the collection together. You may appeal to collectors that are interested in decorating their homes and their offices and public spaces, and that's a valid collection or collector. You may be working with the type of collector who is trying to build a historic collection, who's looking at the historic and the aesthetic linear pedigree of an aesthetic and a body of work. You may be working with collectors that are strictly interested in investment and flipping the work in a matter of years. You must understand your market, who your audience is, who your client is, and understand that you can work within different markets and have a successful practice. Additional resources that will help you to determine this include artworkarchive.com, theartistsmentor.com, artistnetwork.com, and gyst-inc.com and nftguru.com. All of these resources will be provided by the foundation after this presentation today. So don't feel nervous about having to take notes. But I do want to say that pricing work is probably one of the strangest and nebulous parts of an artist's practice to navigate. And it's primarily because the monetary value of art, unlike car and furniture manufacturing, can't really be quantified by a set standard. So I'm sorry to say that there's no perfect formula for pricing your art. Okay, goodbye. The presentation's over. No, I'm just kidding. There are 3 foundational formulas that appraisers actually have to use sometimes that will help you to define a fair market value. And a fair market value is pretty much defined as what a willing buyer and a willing seller agree to purchase and sell a piece of work for. So let's look at the first formula. The first formula is called square inch times dollar amount. To get the square inch of a painting, you have to multiply the width of the work by the length of it. For example, 18 by 24 inches is 432 inches. Then you multiply the 424 inches by a dollar amount. And that makes sense based on the dollar amount is going to make sense based on your credentials and your reputation and presence in the market. So for example, you're going to take 432 inches and you're going to multiply it by $4. And that will be $1,728. Then you round it out to the nearest hundred. So that would take that $1,728 and turn it to $1,700. And then finally, you double the cost of your materials and add it to the square inch dollar amount. This accounts for up to 50% of the commission that some galleries may take, or art consultants or art advisors, which can range between 15 and 25 or 30%. But let's just say $100 is what the materials cost for that specific painting or work that you made. You multiply it by 2, so that's $200. Now you're going to add the $1,700 that was based on this square inches, plus the $200, and now that piece of art is $1,900. I'm just trying to use easy numbers for the math, but it's more about the concept of square inch times the dollar amount. Emerging artists in the marketplace should consider pricing their artwork at more affordable rates, which, established artists can change because established artists will charge higher. So let's say you're an artist who's been doing outdoor fairs and you're charging $2 to $3 a square inch. But when selling at outdoor fairs and festivals or indoor fairs and festivals, the increased dollar amount you will increase the dollar amount when you start working with galleries, because there's a whole bunch of variables why the pricing will change, which we can also talk about later. But just to reiterate this concept, if you have an 18 by 24 inch painting, you're going to multiply 18 by 24 to get the 432 square inches. And you're going to take the 432 square inches and multiply it by $4, which will give you $1,728. And then you will round it to 1,700. And we're going to say that your materials cost $100 and you will multiply it by 2, which will make it $200. And then you add the $200 to the $1,700 to get $1,900. Now, Formula 2 is an hourly wage times the hours spent plus the cost of materials. So you should know that according to the United States Department of Labor, Occupational Labor Statistics, that they list that the hourly wage, take a deep breath, for artists is $25.96. And this is a good base just for the purpose of demonstrating the formula, but that does not necessarily mean that that's your base. So for the purpose of simple math, I'm going to say that the hourly rate is $20. So if you're charging $20 an hour for 15 hours that it's going to take you to complete the painting, and you spend $100 on materials, it's going to be 20 hours times $20 times 15 hours, which would equal $300. And $300 plus $100 for materials is $400. And when you decide on an hourly rate, just make sure that you look to see what the comparable artists are charging for their art. So if you use this formula and your price is much higher than the market that you've developed, then you have to, recalculate and lower your price because the market won't bear a price if you have a certain level of a price if you have exceeded what other artists who have a much more healthy market presence. The third formula is height plus width times a multiplier. This is good if you make paintings of many different sizes because square inch pricing can be very confusing with a range of sizes. So to give you an example of why it's confusing is if you use a multiplier of $2.50 per square inch for your smallest painting, that's 4 by 4, the cost of the painting is going to be $40. And if your largest painting is 32 by 32, then it's going to be $2,560. And this is going to be a very hard thing to explain to a collector, and it might put them off. So the linear inch pricing is a much easier price strategy to approach. So for example, we're going to take the same 4 by 4 painting. It's 4 by 4 inch painting at $20 per linear inch, okay? And you're going to say 4 plus 4 equals 8 linear inches. Now you're going to take those linear inches and you're going to multiply those 8 linear inches by $20. And that means that that 4 by 4 painting that if you did the square inch approach was $40 is now $160. The example for a 32 by 32 painting at $20 a linear inch is that you're going to add 32 plus 32, which will equal 64 linear inches. And then you'll take the 64 linear inches times 20 per linear inch, which will make it $1,280. So these are just some tips, basically, of how you might want to approach on a very basic level of not tips, but examples of pricing strategies that are actually used and valid pricing strategies that are used by appraisers when they are doing comparable analysis and they are going to galleries and looking at prices for artists, or they're looking and they go to auction records and the sizing may not exist and they have to figure it out based on the number and values. But I would like to give you a couple of quick tips, since there isn't a perfect formula, but things that are very important for you as artists when you are in the mindset of pricing. You have to plan ahead. Do not price things at the last minute. This can lead to outrageously high or low prices depending on your mood or current economic situation or desire for attention. And sort of err on the high side. Low pricing can indicate that the artist doesn't have confidence in his or her work. On the other hand, if you're asking as an emerging artist $25,000 for a painting, this will be over the top if you don't have any market value. Make sure you compensate yourself fairly for your time and materials. A lot of times artists are undervaluing their work and often make less money in sales than they spent in making the work. So you have to keep track of your expenses and time spent creating the work. And you can use an accounting program on your computer. And you must defend your prices, but the best way to defend your prices is being able to keep track of the time and expenses so that it makes sense. And when you are doing that, you need to calculate your studio expenses, maintain records of the time it took to make the work, cost of materials, overhead, rent, utilities, professional fees, shipping, fabrication, assistance, transportation, postage, and shipping. You tally that, and then you divide that number by the number of works you made in a year and average the cost per work. And then add the sales commission and make sure you build in a profit margin and room for a discount. Finally, the last thing I'd like to say is that artists with gallery experience and consistent sales histories, they already have base prices for their works. But if you don't already, you need to keep track of your sales records, and you must also make sure that you are doing your own comparable analyses of other artists who are working the way you work, who are your contemporaries aesthetically and chronologically, and just make sure that you are being honest with yourself about which market is really going to serve you best. So I'm just going to conclude with that. That's just a few things that I thought would be a good way of starting the conversation.
Thank you so much, Halima. There is a lot of rich material there. I can't wait to hear the questions that many of the folks will have on the call, and very timely. So thank you so much. We'll get to those questions shortly. I would now like to introduce our next speaker, who's Diane Dinkins-Carr. She's the president and founder of DDC Consulting Group. She's an art appraisal and consulting company that provides appraisals, advisory, and research services to connect individuals, collectors, architects, designers, developers, institutions, and businesses to the visual arts. Diane is located in Chicago. We'll put her bio in the chat as well. Welcome, Diane.
Thank you for having me, Daryl. I want to thank you and the foundation for this great opportunity. Halima, I am so honored to be on this panel with you. Halima and I, we go way back to early appraisal days. But Halima's presentation on the 3 formulas on how to price art is on spot. Can't get any clearer than that. I come from a family of artists. I've watched how the early artists from the WPA and the Harlem Renaissance really struggle to sell their art. And I try to advise today's artists, which many get frustrated, just be patient. You have to have an entrepreneurial attitude, spirit. Being an artist, you have to decide what type of artist you want to be. I mean, if this is a hobby, maybe this is not for you. I know many artists, they take their profession as a business. They paint 24 hours. They have curators. They have studio assistants. They have marketing people. Now, are you at that point of your career? It's up to you. Every artist that wants to get into a museum in a particular collector's collection, you have to have the entrepreneur and business mind. If you want to just be doing this as a hobby, that's fine. But don't get upset when you go to various art shows, galleries, and your work isn't looked at. So you have to take this serious. Halima gave you 3 formulas. Back in the day, in the early 60s, 70s, there was no internet, there was no cell phones. Artists had to figure this out on their own. They would have a particular set of friends that would buy their work. So today has changed with this new technology. The world is right before you. Take advantage of it. Now, the 3 formulas that Halima gave you, use those. That's ABC, 1, 2, 3. Can't get any clearer than that. My part of the presentation is, we've looked at the auction houses. We see how art is really the end thing, and pieces are going for $10 million, $15 million. Now, are you at that point yet? I don't know, but I'm trying to give you advice, maybe how to get your foot in the door. Make sure your work is quality. Look at your work. Make sure you have the correct framing. Make sure that you have enough time in the day to start a piece and maybe finish it in the timely manner you want, which may be 2 days, 3 weeks, or a month. You have to have that entrepreneur attitude and spirit. You might have to hire a person to help you in your studio, making phone calls, make sure you have all your receipts. So when you purchase your paints from off the internet or an art store, keep your receipts in a file. I know for a fact artists are not good record keepers. I come from a family of artists. I grew up with artists. So once you get that receipt, put it in an envelope. So when you price whatever piece you're working on, you don't have to guess how much you spend on supplies. Also, everyone wants to be in a museum. Everyone wants to be in some collector's collection. Let's start off slow. Do art fairs. Some people don't want to do art fairs, but that's where you develop your relationship with collectors. I'm a collector. I collect various ways, from emergent, mid-career to high-end. When I go to different shows, either disguised, I'm undercover, or I may send one of my friends in to purchase a piece. The reason why, because prices change for certain people. If you know Oprah Winfrey or a basketball player is at a show, all the artist wants to get to that particular person, and the prices fluctuate. Keep your prices consistent. I don't care if it's Oprah, I don't care if it's Derrick Rose, I don't care if it's one of the top collectors in the world, because people talk. So if you see a beginning collector and you sell a piece for $2,000, and then here comes an athlete, and then you know they have money, and that same piece might go up to 10,000. Is that fair? Be honest with yourself and the collector. Also, go to various galleries, form a relationship with the gallery owners, form a relationship with curators at the museum. But you have to really be serious on what you are doing. And also take time, step away from your work. A piece of work cannot be created in a day, cannot be rushed, because it will show in the final product. There are individuals that want commission pieces. To me, commissions are the hardest thing, because a client or a collector may say, this is what I want, sits down and speaks to you. You go create it, they change their mind. Always start off with a sketch with your client or the collector and say, this is my idea. Are we on the same page? Because collectors will change their mind in a minute. So always show them various drawings on what they might want or what you heard them saying to you. Because they might say one thing, you heard a different thing, and it has to be a working relationship. I go to a lot of art fairs. I go to a lot of museum exhibitions. I do see artists there. It's all about relationships. Don't worry about one artist may get into a museum or a collector's collection before you. You have to really be serious and look at your work. I know it's an up and down roller coaster, but as of today, art is a big thing. Where I would say 20 years ago, it was an on and off iffy, but now you have NFTs, which I'm still trying to learn about. And people are investing in NFTs, digital art, but stay consistent and stay in contact with your collector, because your collectors or the person that purchased your art, they might have a show for you at their home. So then you have a private showing. That's a good way to get your name out there, and people would start buying your work. But you have to have that business mind attitude. It's just not, I'm going to do this one day and jump ship and make jewelry a month from now. Because word would get out that a particular artist is not serious. Also, when you sell your piece, a piece of artwork, to a collector, talk to them about the piece. I've been at many shows, many panels where I might meet an individual that's going to speak on a piece of art, and they explain the painting to me, and I kind of look puzzled because everyone sees art differently. So this individual is explaining this piece, and I ask the individual, well, did the artist tell you this is the story behind the piece? The person said no. Well, how can you explain this artist's piece if the artist did not tell you the meaning behind this piece? So make sure you speak to the buyer or the collector about the piece of work they are about to purchase. Now there are, you have to create a layaway plan if your prices are steep. And collectors might say, well, I can give you a third down, and I can give you the other third maybe in a month. Form a relationship. Also, what I found out among artists, and don't get offended, artists do not like to read. they do not want to be, you read what you like to read, but you don't want to read contracts. Contracts are very important. Even when you are approached by a film company, they see your work, they want your piece of art in one of their movies or their scenes, get the details, fill out a contract. I had an artist call me one day, and their painting was in one of the scenes for a movie that Oprah Winfrey was in. And I asked that artist, are you getting paid for that piece to be shown in that scene? And they said, no. I said, why not? Well, that same painting was used in another movie, and he had signed it was an open-end contract. So that means whoever the creative director for that movie can use that piece of art in any movie or sitcom. Make sure you get a book on contracts. There, you can go on Amazon. There's a book called Forms for Visual Artists. You have the copyright to that piece of art. So I think I just froze. Can everyone still hear me?
Yes, you're good, Diane.
Okay, thank you, Daryl.
You're welcome.
So read copyright laws. I've taken a lot of art law courses just to protect you artists. So you still have the copyright to that piece. So if you see that piece being reproduced,
Okay, so Diane is freezing a bit. Diane, you are freezing a bit. I think we're gonna go to questions that the group may have. So you want to maybe give your final remarks, and then you froze a little bit, but
okay, can everyone see me now?
yes.
Okay, all I want to say, the 3 formulas that Lima gave you, great. Protect yourself when it comes to contracts. If you don't want to do it, get a friend that's an attorney to read contracts for you. I hope this was helpful, and good luck.
Thank you so much, Diane. Really appreciate all your work in the industry as well. And thank you for being a supporter of the Darryl Chappell Foundation. Really value your support. Thank you. So now we're gonna transition to your time as individuals on the line to ask your questions. I see the questions are coming through. We'll take them as they come through in the chat, but also if you would like to raise your hand, we'll take your question live. So we're gonna take a moment to get the questions as they come through. So the first question I see is from Warren. He asks, how might one grow their price market? Say you sold at one price and want to get a more lucrative market. How do you both feel about that, and also about NFTs, digital crypto art?
You know, I'll start with an answer. So there are a couple of ways. I'm going to just each situation is different. So I'm trying to really understand that this artist, Warren, you have sold a piece of work, and for a while you've maintained a certain price point. That's what I'm gonna assume that means. And you want to elevate the price point. Well, just every year there are inflation costs. So if you use any of these formulas, using also the base that you have, you'll be able to increase the market. The other thing is I don't know which market you're in, And I don't know if you're also selling your work directly out of the studio, if I don't know which market you're in. And so there are different strategies for the different markets. So if you could indicate which market, I might be able to be more specific. With regard to NFT, when you ask, how do I feel? They're not going away, just like the internet or the computer. They're not going away. It's a market, a digital world and a digital market that is really here to stay. I'm not fully comfortable yet with being able to talk about NFTs for artists in a way that I would feel that I would really be doing a service, because I'm still processing a lot of the information, and that's why I suggested the NFTguru.com, because it's specifically for artists. And so I thought, and that's why I suggested that website. But again, if it's more specific about the feeling you want me to respond to, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you, Halima, for that. Diane, did you have any remarks to Warren's question?
Oh,
NFTs?
Sorry.
About NFTs?
No, not the NFT one, but he said, what about changing one's style? Must you always stick with the original style?
No, artists, well, once you get your collector so used to one style and you change to another style, if it's quality and marketable, go for it. I've seen artists change styles quite a bit successfully, and I've seen how artists change their style and they weren't successful. So it depends what market you want to change your style to. I've seen artists go from figurative to abstract, not so well, but it depends on the clients and the market.
I just want to add to that too. I would hope that, I think that artists, because of the nature of the way, what their process is and the way the brain functions, they are actually exploring the endless possibilities of an aesthetic, of a medium, of a time, of a place, and a narrative. And so often they may change the style, or they may change the approach to the medium within the same style. And you would hope that an artist is going to grow, and that will be reflected over a period of time. However, there are different styles at different times in different markets that become trendy or more popular. And so, it's a variable that will or may not affect a particular artist's work or market presence. I mean, I'll give an example of a master collagist, a master American collagist like Romary Bearden. And prior to him becoming the master collagist that he was also a master watercolorist, but people didn't really pay attention so much to the straight watercolors. And he prior to that did abstraction. And that market has just only begun to open for him because people really loved his style of collage. But the other thing I just quickly wanted to say to artists that are here, if you are selling your work out of your studio and you are also an artist who works with a dealer, and your dealer has established certain price points for your work as the asking price, all right, make sure that in order to protect your value in the marketplace, that I'm just a number thing. Let's say your dealer is selling your work for $50,000 and somebody comes to your studio and you really like them and they really want your work and you really want them to have it and you really want them to have it, but you're going to give them a discount. And let's say you give them a 50% discount. Let's say you give them a dealer's price, let's say, okay? Then you need to put on the receipt $50,000 minus 50% discount, $25,000, so that when an appraiser looks at that receipt that the collector has and then does the other comparable analysis, you have protected your market. But if you just put $25,000, have the art, if you just put $25,000, when we start doing our averages of different prices and everything, you may lower your market value. So that's something I just wanted to mention to you, since we're talking about pricing, but this is an example of how once you come to a price, how you can contribute to maintaining the market value.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Alima, for that next level of detail. The questions are coming in fast and furious. I'm going to go to the next one. This one is from Dara. Hi, I'm an up-and-coming selling and exhibiting artist living in Philly, selling out of my studio as well as gallery spaces. I want to elevate my price points as well as expand my audience. Any advice? And Dara, thank you, Dara, thank you for the question, because we're going to actually have a poll question at the end to ask what's most important to you for a potential future seminar. So let me throw that to either Diane or Alima.
Alima, you want to take that? You said you want to elevate your price point as well as expand your audience.
Yeah, I want you to take, I actually know Dara, and I will say, and I met her when I was doing some work at Philadelphia, I'm blanking out. That's terrible. Anyway, she was a student there at the time, and she is an incredibly talented and well-rounded and versatile artist who's strong in every medium. So I thought you should. I mean, I can answer it, but I thought it would be good if she could hear a different voice, and then I'll come back around. Pennsylvania Academy of Arts.
Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts.
Yeah, Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. Thank you. I had a brain freeze there.
So you want to elevate your price point as well as expand your audience. Well, since I don't know what your price points are, I don't know if they might be $200 and you want to expand it to $3,000. You have to look at yourself. Why do you want to expand it? Is it because you look at other artists as working in the same medium and you think your price point is below today's market? After, I need something to work with, and you want to expand your audience. Okay, you work out your studio. Have you tried networking?
And also, Diane, the price point is $2,500 to $3,000 is what she just said.
Okay, 2,000 to
2,500 to 3,000.
And so, Dara, do you have clients or collectors buying at that price point? And it really depends on the materials and the time you put in creating that piece. Just because that you want to increase your price point, is it because materials cost more, or your rent, your studio rent? What is the reason why you want to increase your price point? And that's something you need to, think about. Why? Now, if your rent has gone up in your studio rent, the internet costs, phone costs, materials, I would say yes, you have to figure that out. And I think that's formula number 2 in Fahim's formula, not Fahim, Halima's formula that she gave out. She gave out 3 formulas. So you have to ask yourself, why do you want to increase your price point? Like $2,500 to $3,000.
I'd like to add to that, if I can, Diane. I think there are several variables that are important to think about increasing your price point. And most of the time, in order to do that, you have to increase your audience. And there are very important variables beyond it that are part of what comes out of the studio that artists have to do. You have to make sure that you're also simultaneously producing work as well as building your artist resume. So because when you start building your artist resume, and I'll explain how and why, you're also expanding audiences being aware of your work. And also your artist resume is something that, depending on the market, your client is going to want to have when they purchase the artwork, because that's something that they put in their files about the artists that they collect in, let's say, the international art market, which I believe that your market, your work is well suited for. So from that standpoint, you want to make sure that while you're producing the work to help increase the market, you need to start looking at artist residencies. Why? Because the panelists on these artist residencies are connected to various, to the collective activity of the art world. They're critics, they're writers, they're dealers, they're other artists. They're also collectors and curators in particular. And so by starting to apply for artist residencies, it's also a way of building your resume. And also, if you don't get that residency, then one of those people will be on another panel for something else and remember your work and say, you know, I really wanted to support this artist. This might be a better match. The other thing that you need, that's important to do, is to try to do the research with regard to the types, you know, even with curators. Who are the curators that you're interested in seeing your work? And then think about what kinds of work they are drawn to. Then be able to put a presentation together about the linear aesthetic pedigree that your work comes out of historically and aesthetically, so that they can see how they can make a visual statement curatorially that includes your work. So and in addition to increasing pricing, you can increase your prices annually by, you know, cost of living increase. You know, a very well-known artist by the name of Benny Andrews, who used to be the former director of the of visual arts for the National Endowment for the Arts, he had many dealers all over the country, and every year he would send a brand new price list to them. And he was very consistent with his prices around the country, which was also really important, because you don't want to have a range of prices all over the place, because ultimately when an appraiser is going to appraise the collection of a client, you know, your price point might be, as you said, let's say your highest fee is $3,000, but you decided to sell it to a collector for 25, and another one for 1,000, another one for 500. When we do our average of those numbers, you have really, you know, shot yourself in the foot. So it's very important as artists to be consistent. The increase of the pricing is a gradual thing in the marketplace. And one of the best ways of being able to increase prices has a lot to do with when you're working with a dealer who has a gallery, whether it's a brick and mortar gallery or whether they're a dealer that only doesn't have a physical gallery any longer, and they only do art fairs. And even if you're working with art advisors or art brokers, because they have a different process of thinking about pricing compared to other artists that they're representing, and then the way that they talk up your work to existing collectors. So, you know, it's very important that you think about the whole market and think about different residencies, different grant opportunities to support your work, you know, as well. This shows that you're fiscally savvy. I mean, all of these things are important to help to support the perception of value of what you are doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for these very thorough responses to the questions. We have about 20 minutes more to take Q&A. I'm going to go through a couple here. One from Rhonda about how to price three-dimensional art like soft sculpture art dolls. And then one from Mildor. Thank you to the foundation and the panelists for this very informative event. His question is the following: how to consider pricing work that has some kind of trajectory, saying the work has been in a biennial or competition, etc. So those are the two questions for now. Anyone wants to take that?
Could you say that again?
Okay, the last one was from Mildor. So his question is how to consider pricing work that has some kind of trajectory, saying the work has been in a biennial or a competition, how to price that work when it has a proven trajectory.
is the question about how to price that specific piece compared to the rest of the other body of work that has a price point? Because if that's the case, there can be a percentage, increase for that value. It will have more value because it probably will be photographed, written about, there's press about it. It may be included in publications, but you can't go crazy with what that price is. And it also depends on where you are in the market and which market that you're in. I mean, in that case, that would be a piece that if I was the artist and that piece was there, I would hold it. I would hold on to it. I wouldn't rush to sell that piece, because if your career is in a trajectory, then people are going to want your work, but they're eventually going to also want to purchase the work either for themselves or for a museum that has a historic significance because it was in that particular art show. And that would increase the price right there. Oh, hi, Mildor.
Great. Hello. Thank you. Yeah, that was the core of the question. Hello, good to see you all. Thank you. Yes. So that was the question. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mildor. And then there was a question about how to price three-dimensional art.
Ooh. That's hard for me. I mean, because I am not really great at math.
I don't know, Halima, you were throwing out those numbers a little bit earlier.
I said somebody's going to ask this question, and I think that you would use the same formula, but you would do the linear. You would figure out the linear inches, basically. You wouldn't use the square foot measurement, and you would definitely have to look at what the market is for soft sculpture and what type of soft sculpture. There are so many different markets for soft sculpture within that umbrella that I described. So it's again identifying which soft sculpture market you're working within. But I would do the linear approach with the sculpture, and then look at other soft sculpture prices and see, where you fall. I hope that's helpful. I really wanted to answer that for you.
I have a question, Lima. You wouldn't use the other formula, price of material with rent and expenses and time?
Yeah, there are different types of soft sculpture. So yeah, you could use Formula 2, the hourly wage, hours spent, and the cost of materials. That's true. You could use that one, Formula 2. That's true. You could, but you could also use the linear one, because some of the soft sculptures, it depends on the dimension. So it's, if it's a amorphous shape, it's easier to do it one way versus another way. But see which one comes up with the best number for you. That's the other thing that's nice about these different formulas, is that one formula may be more attractive to you and more in keeping with the kinds of price points you want to start with or develop and expand.
So let's take two more questions. This is a discussion among friends, so don't be shy if there's more questions out there. So the two questions we'll take, one is from Joy, and I think we kind of just touched on this. Is there a different rule of thumb for pricing depending on the art form, pottery versus paintings? And then there's a question from Philandus.
Yeah.
Could someone speak about the trend of emerging artists asking for more money than mid-career and established Black artists? I don't know if that's scientifically proven trend. I've seen a trend of young artists leaving Yale, Columbia, etc., asking for prices comparable to the prices of artists that have been showing for more than 20 years. And then it goes on.
I will happily talk about that because there is truth to this, and it has everything to do. And since we're specifically talking about Black artists, it is specific to artists of African descent in the marketplace at this time in history. What has happened is that major collections of American art are filling the historic and aesthetic gaps in their American art collections. And in doing so, they have been clamoring for all of the historic artists to fill the gaps for, between Helen Frankenthaler and Jackson Pollock, and they've, fill it with Norman Lewis and someone like Mary Lovelace O'Neill or Mildred Thompson. And now you're dealing with these emerging artists and these contemporary artists. And the figure is now the trend more than abstract work within certain markets. And it has a lot to do with the fact that major galleries for years have chosen to ignore the meritorious work of American artists of African descent. And they are now running around and to try to get some access to these artists, and they can't get access to the artists that they denied interest in 20 and 30 years ago. So a lot of these emerging artists, they're thinking about, developing, whether and a lot of them aren't ready or mature yet. And then you have certain fine art programs that are functioning in the way that, feeder schools in the independent school market, where, there's certain schools that those independent schools target for potential students, and they're called feeder schools. Well, these MFA programs have become feeder institutions that attract galleries, dealers, as well as major collectors looking for new emerging artists. And because of that, the prices that they are willing to pay has given a lot of these emerging artists a false sense of reality in terms of how it functions. And it's created a lot of confusion. It has created a certain amount of arrogance and also disregard for even the linear historic and aesthetic pedigree that they come out of. And one of the reasons why I say there's arrogance in this is because many of the mid-career and established artists, when they would talk about their artwork, they would talk about who their influences were, but then how they push the medium and how it's their aesthetic or their statements and everything. A lot of these artists that are coming out of these MFA programs, they can talk about it and they're smart and they're business savvy. This is a commodity. Once you exchange money, art is a commodity. They understand that. But they never talk about it in our historical terms, in terms of who their influences are, and rarely do they. And as a result, they make it seem like they're brand new in whatever the aesthetic is. And many of these dealers, even though they may know art history, they don't know the history of African American art history in the United States. And they're not doing that homework to see what the connections are from an art historical perspective, but also in terms of a market perspective for a lot of these artists. I've been traveling to art fairs all over the world prior to COVID, and I just started again a few weeks ago. And what's happening to a lot of these artists that are being picked up so early and with these insane price points is that they are now enslaved to producing artwork, and they're not having the space to even evolve or try new things, or even have the luxury of changing a style, because they're now on this treadmill of producing art for these artists. I can say I have been to a couple of art fairs where some of celebrated artists that have been doing very well, who are emerging, and some of them have even made auction, and the canvases are still wet. Okay, that's crazy. So I do think that on one hand, there's a savvy on the part of the artists because they are understanding how the collective activity of the art world functions and the politics of talking to these dealers and curators in particular, as well as collectors. And they are aware that they're hoping and that they're going to cash in these prestigious MFA degrees. But I will say that there is now a new trend among collectors to feel that unless an artist has an MFA, they're not serious. And this is the problem with this kind of system that's begun to emerge with artist MFA programs. And if you do think that, if collectors think that, they're actually missing out on some of the best work that's produced. And I'll finally close with saying that there are every year 200,000 fine artists graduate from art school as fine art majors. Only 10% can make it professionally as artists, make a living. It's in this country. So this is why it's important as artists to think about different markets for your work, because that 10% is only going to fit in that international marketplace. And there are other markets where you can have successful careers. But this is one of those hard look yourself in the mirror conversations where you're going to have to pull your ego out of yourself and think, what are my goals? What do I want? Do I want to make a living doing what I love? Do I want a collector to have my work? I'm making my art for myself and strangers to enjoy. How can I best have most visibility and also the financial reward? And, and I should say that there have been artists, much to my surprise, who have only worked in, said, look, I forget this other, market. I'm going to deal with the commercial market. And I almost fell over. I mean, this was a few years back. And this artist had ceramic pieces that were integrated with other stuff that was, it was interesting kind of work. But and he was selling like hotcakes, and I was just, fascinated, about that. And but the reality was that he was sending his daughter to the same college that I went to. And when I went to that college, it was $7,500 a year. That was in 1978. Okay. When I graduated in 82, the tuition was $14,500. Now the tuition is $85,000. At the time that I saw this artist, it was $50,000. And his daughter isn't on financial aid because he found a market where he was able to please people who wanted his work, and he was making money. And meanwhile, a lot of the other artists that were clamoring for the other kinds of accolades within the elitist traditional art world, they were struggling. And they were working, in different ways so that they could support their practice. And that was for the majority of those artists. And then you have the few that are able to have a balance. They're able to work and they're able to participate. And the key is participate, but they're still not solely making a living on their art, but they're happy with that. So your goal setting for yourself, your vision for what you want is so critical to determining which market, which then helps you with ease or figure out the whole pricing structure.
Excellent. So thank you, Halima. Thank you, Diane. Last call for questions. Feel free to raise your hand. We're going to respect everyone's time and wrap up on time. We really, really enjoyed having you here for this discussion. I see one question came through here. Commission and fees. So that'll be the last question. Diane, do you want to take commission and fees?
Commissions and fees. Is that to a gallery? Usually a gallery marks up. You have to tell the gallery what you want to sell it for. Am I correct, Halima? Because they will mark it up at least 50%.
Yeah, it's tricky. So it depends on the type of art professional you're working with. If you have a dealer who has a brick and mortar gallery, they have a lot of overhead. So their commission is going to be much higher, and you're going to be contributing to their brick and mortar. You're going to be contributing to their operating expenses. If they are also investing in you and paying for advertisements in art publications and other kinds of publicity, which means they have to hire a publicist for you, their commission is going to be higher and will probably be up to 50%. If you are selling your work or working with an art advisor, and there's a difference between an art advisor working with an art advisor, a dealer, and an art broker or consultant. The commission for an art advisor is you would give an art consultant maybe a 15 to 20, it could be from 15 to 25% or 15 to 20% commission. That allows them to make money on the work that's going to, so they're either going to add it to your price or they're going to subtract it from the price. An art advisor is on retainer to the collector, to the client. They're getting paid a retainer and a fee and a percentage of what they buy. So what they do is they would take the normal percentage that you would give them, and they give that percentage to the client. And that's one of the reasons why private collectors work with art advisors, because they feel like they're getting a personal curator, but they're also getting the benefit. And it's perfectly fine. You're still getting the money that you want to get, but that's how that commission structure works. An art consultant can take money from you as the artist and say, okay, look, I'll sell the work. I want 20%. And you'll say, fine. But then their client may be paying them fee for running around for them. And then they're able to get paid both ways. And sometimes it ends up being like 20% total between the artist and the dealer. But you're going to have anybody that's going to work for you as an artist to try to sell your work and place your work in collections. You want to pay them for their time, because what you don't realize is that there's a lot of time on the phone. There's a lot of start and stop. There's a lot of correspondence. There's a lot of comps that they have to do for the collector, and they've earned that commission.
Great, thank you, Halima, Diane. Let's give them a round of applause. Yay!
Thank you again for having us, and thank you all for coming here today on your Saturday.
Exactly.
And if you have other questions, I'm happy to answer. You can reach me through the foundation, or you can reach me through tahathinks.art. But I'm committed to this foundation and the work that it's doing, and any way that I can support the artists that they're committed to supporting, I'm here. So
thank you so much for that, Halima. And we're going to provide some directions on how people can choose to stay involved. We, by design, will not include you on any email unless you ask to be included. So that's going to be very important in a moment when I mention that. I do want to thank our supporters. So thank you to our art patrons. They're listed on the screen for providing support. Thank you to the individual donors who provide support. Thank you to the board of directors who are listed here on the screen. I would not be able to run the foundation without a strong leadership team, and I'm so thankful to have a full board of 9 directors. Also, thank you to our partner organizations. Like I mentioned, we provide grants to other nonprofits. These are some of our actual partners that we partner with in our programming. And this is how you can stay in touch with us. Moses will put in the chat the actual links. We have a link tree on Instagram. You can get all the connections, as well as these particular links here in terms of the different ways of getting in touch with us. If you have a specific follow-up question for either Halima or Diane, feel free to email me directly, and I'll make sure that they receive those questions. It's Daryl at darylchappellfoundation.org, or you can feel free to give me a call as well. If you would like to support our mission, which is also mission critical, we are unable to do this work without your support, both volunteer for board and also financially. There are 3 ways to give. One is to our Fund for Community Art. We have this new program that I alluded to earlier. We are providing funding to nonprofits to provide artists with a chance to work on public commission art. So this month, we're going to announce our first partnership. It's in Washington, D.C. with a nonprofit. It's an $8,000 grant to an actual local artist in Southeast D.C. So stay alert to that announcement. We have a target that'll raise $25,000. You can do that on our webpage. You can contribute any kind of way, Venmo, PayPal, all of that is available on the community art link there. You can also support us by mailing a check directly to our headquarters, which is in Washington, D.C. Thank you for your support. A little bit of an announcement. So we have our first gala on September 17th. Please join us. It's going to be from 2 p.m. to 2:45 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be really quick, but we're going to highlight partners, going to have their partner award, and we're also going to have an Artist of the Year award. And so we look forward to recognizing both our partner and our artists. And then we're also going to have 2 artists in residence who just completed their programs, Jasmine Clark from Brooklyn in New York, and also Aaron Turner, who just completed his artist in residency at the Ogden Museum of Southern Art.